What? Okay, my mic is fine. Right, chapter 2. Aunt Marge, a big mistake. Harry went down to breakfast next morning to find the three Dursleys already sitting around the kitchen table. They were watching a brand new television. A welcome home for the summer present for Dudley, who had been complaining loudly about the long walk between the fridge and the television in the living room. Dudley had spent most of the summer in the kitchen, his piggy little eyes fixed on the screen and his five chins wobbling as he ate continually. Harry sat down between Dudley and Uncle Vernon, a large beefy man, very little neck, a lot of mustache. Apart from wishing Harry a happy birthday, none of the Dursleys made any sign that they had noticed Harry enter the room. But Harry was far too used to this to care. He helped himself to a piece of toast and looked up at the reporter on the television. He was halfway through the report on an escaped convict. The public is warned that black is armed and extremely dangerous. A hotline has been set up and any sighting of black reported immediately. Don't to tell us it's no good, snorted Uncle Venom, staring up at the top of it, staring over the top of the prisoner. Look at the state of him, the filth he lay about. Look at his hair. He shot a nasty look sideways at Harry. The untidy hair had always been a source of great annoyance to Uncle Vernon. Compared to the man on the television, however, whose gaunt face was surrounded by a matted, opulent tangle, Harry felt very well groomed. Potter had reappeared. The Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries would now today. Hang on, bagged Uncle Vernon, staring fiercely at the reporter. You didn't tell us where that maniac escaped from. What use is that? It could be coming up the street right now. Aunt Petunia, who was bony and horse-faced, around and peered intently out of the kitchen window. Harry knew Aunt Petunia would simply love to be the one to call the hotline. The nosiest woman in the world spent most of her life spying on the boring boy by the neighbor. When would they learn, said Uncle Vernon, pounding the table with his large purple fist, that hanging is the only way to deal with this kind of people. Very true, said Aunt Petunia, who was still squinting next door on a beam. Uncle Vernon drained a stick up, glanced at his watch and added, "You better be off in a minute, Junior. Marge strains getting her turn." Harry, who started upstairs with a broomstick servicing kit, was brought back to earth with an unpleasant bump. Aunt Marge, he blurted out. She's not coming here, is she? Aunt Marge was Uncle Vernon's. Even though she was not blood relative, even though she was not a blood relative to Harry's, what had been Aunt Patricia's sisters, had been forced to call her aunt all his life. Aunt Marge lived in the country, a house with a large garden where she bred bulldogs. She didn't often stay at Privet Drive because she couldn't bear to leave her precious dogs. But each of her visits stood out horribly vividly in Harry's mind. At Dudley's 5th birthday party, Aunt Marge had wagged Harry walking stick, stopping from beating Dudley at music statues. A few years later, she had turned up at smudged the computerized robots for Dudley, and a bar and a box of doggy biscuits for her. On the last visit, the year before Harry started at Hogwarts, Harry had accidentally trodden on the tail of her favorite dog, who had chased Harry out into the garden and the upper tree. Aunt Marge had followed him off until past midnight. Memory of this incident brought tears of laughter to Dudley's eyes. "Marge, I'll be here for a week," Uncle Vernon snarled. While on the subject, he pointed a fat finger threateningly at Harry. "Get a few things before I go collect her." Dudley smirked and withdrew his gaze from the television. Harry being bullied by Uncle Vernon was Dudley's payment. Firstly, Uncle Vernon proud. With a civil tongue in your head and you talking to Aunt Marge. "All right," said Harry bitterly. "She does when she's talking to me." Secondly, said Uncle Vernon, as though he had not heard Harry's reply, "As Marge also to know anything about your abnormalities, don't want any phony stuff while she's here. Behave yourself. About me?" "I will if she does," said Harry through the teeth. And thirdly, said Uncle Vernon, his mean little eyes now slit, double face, told Marge to attend St. Brutus, the cure center for incurably criminal boys. "What?" told Harry Potter. "And you stick to that story, boy, or there will be trouble." said Uncle Vernon. Harry sat there, white-faced and furious, staring at Uncle Vernon, hardly able to believe it. Aunt Marge coming for a week-long visit was the most horrible birthday present from the Dursleys he had ever given him, including that pair of Uncle Vernon's old socks. Well, Fortuna, said Uncle Vernon, getting heavily to his feet. We'll be off to the station then. Want to come along for the ride, Dudders? No, said Dust. The tension had returned to the television now that Uncle Vernon had finished threatening Harry. Duddy got to make himself smart for his auntie, said Aunt Petunia. Dudley's thick blonde hair bought him a lovely new bow tie. Uncle Vernon slapped Dudley on his bulky shoulders. See you in a bit then, said, and he left the kitchen. Harry, who had been sitting kind of horrified trance, had a sudden idea. Abandoning his toast, he got to his feet and followed Uncle Vernon to the front door. Uncle Vernon was pulling his car coat. I'm not taking you, he snarled. Turned to Harry, watching him. Like I wanted to come, said Harry coldly. I want to ask you something. Uncle Vernon eyed him suspiciously. Thought this is all at my school, allowed to visit the village sometimes. So, snapped Uncle Vernon, package from the hook next to the door. I need you to sign the permission form, said Harry in a rush. Why would I do that? Michael Jackson. And why would I do this? Snelled Uncle Vernon. Well, said Harry, words carefully. Hard work pretending to add much against Brutus. What's his name? Then Brutus Secure Center for Incurably Criminal Boys. Bellowed Uncle Vernon. And Harry was pleased to hear definitely no panicking. Exactly, said Harry, looking calmly up into Vernon's large purple face. A lot to remember. I'll have to make it sound convincing, won't I? What if I accidentally let something slip? You'll get the stuffing knocked out of you, won't you? Roared Uncle Vernon, bouncing on Harry with his fist raised. Well, Harry stood his ground. Knocking the stuffing out of me won't make Aunt Marge forget what I could tell her, he said grimly. Uncle Vernon stopped, his fist raised. Face an ugly puss. But if you're signing my permit form, it went on quickly. I swear I'll remember where I'm supposed to go to school. And I'll act like a normal, I'm normal and everything. I could tell that Uncle Vernon was thinking it over, even if his teeth were bad and a vein was throbbing in his temple. Right, he snapped finally. I shall monitor you carefully during March's visit. If at the end of it, you told the line and kept the story, I'll sign your Rudy form. He wheeled around, pulled open the front door, and slammed it so hard that one of the little panes of glass at the top fell out. Harry didn't return to the kitchen. Back to the upstairs. Went back to the upstairs bedroom. He was going to act like a real muggle. He'd better start now. Slowly and sadly, he gathered up all his presents, but they had hid them under the loot cupboard his homework, into Edward's cage. Errol seemed to have recovered. He and Edward were both asleep, heads under their wing. Harry sighed, poked them both awake. Edward, he said gloomily, you're going to have to clear out for a week with Errol. Ron will look after you. Oh, but how does this bird? It's an owl. She understands the humans. Rice made note explaining. And don't look at me like that. Hedwig's large amber eyes were reproachful. It's not my fault. It's the only way I'll be allowed to visit. Hogsmeade and Hermione. How do this where to go? It's just magic then. 10 minutes later, Errol and Hedwig, who had a note to run bound to her legs, soared out of the window and out of sight. Harry, now feeling thoroughly miserable, put the empty cage away inside the wardrobe. Harry didn't have long to breathe. Next to no time, Aunt Petunia was shrieking up the stairs for Harry to come down and ready to welcome their guest. Do something about your hair, Aunt Petunia snapped as he reached the hall. He couldn't see the point of trying to keep his hair flat. Aunt Marge loved to criticize him, but the entire day he looked happier she would. All too soon, there was a crunch of gravel outside as Uncle Vernon's car pulled back into the driveway. Then the clunk of the car doors and footsteps from the garden path. Get it done, Aunt Petunia hissed at Harry. Of great gloom in his stomach, Harry pulled the door open. The threshold stood Marge. But she was very like Uncle Vernon, large, beefy, and purple-faced. She even had a mustache, but not as bushy as his. One hand, she held an enormous suitcase, and tucked under the other suitcase was an old, evil-tempered bulldog. "Where's my daughters?" roared Aunt March. "My Neefy poo." Dudley came waddling down the hall, blonde hair plastered flat to his fat head, bow tie just visible under his many chin. Marge thrust the suitcase into Harry's stomach, knocking the wind out of him. Seized Dudley in a tight one-arm hug and planted a large kiss on his cheek. Harry knew perfectly well that Dudley put up with Aunt March's hugs because he was well paid for. And sure enough, when they broke apart, Dudley held a crisp 20-pound note clutched in his fat fist. Petunia shouted, right, Petunia shouted Aunt March, holding past Harry as though he was at stand. Aunt March and Petunia kissed, or rather, Aunt March bumped a large jaw against Petunia's bony cheek. Governor Nard came in, smiling jovially as he shut the door. "Tea, March," he said. "And what will Ripper take?" "Ripper can have some tea out of my saucer." "Voices?" And a voice. Aunt March as they all proceeded into the kitchen, leaving Harry alone in the hall with his suitcase. But Harry wasn't complaining. Any excuse not to be with Aunt March was fine by him. They began to heave the case upstairs into the spare bedroom, taking as long as it could. By the time we got back to the kitchen, Aunt March had by with the tea and cake, and Ripper was laughing noisily in the corner. Harry saw Aunt Petunia wince slightly as specks of tea and roof flecked her clean floor. Aunt Petunia hated animals. "Who's looking after the other dogs, Marge?" Vernon asked. I've got Colonel Fobster managing," boomed Aunt Marge. "She's hired now. Good for him to have something to do. But I couldn't leave poor old Ripper. Pines if he's away from me." Ripper began to growl. Harry sat down. This directed Aunt Marge's attention to Harry for the first time. So she barked. "Still here, are you?" "Yes," said Harry. "Don't you say yes in that ungrateful tone," Aunt Marge growled. "It's damn good of Vernon and Petunia to keep. I've done it myself. They've gone straight to an orphanage. They'd been dumped on my doorstep." Harry was about to say that I'd rather live in an orphanage than with Dursleys, but the thought of the Hogsmeade bomb stopped him. He forced his face into a painful smile. "Don't just smirk at me. I can see you haven't improved since I last saw you. I hope school would knock some manners into you." A large gulp of tea, wiped a mustache, and said, "Is that you send him again, Vernon?" "Send Brutus," said Uncle Vernon promptly. "The first rate in his hopeless cases." "I see," said Aunt Marge. "They used the cane as St. Brutus, boy?" She barked across the table. Uh, Uncle Vernon nodded curtly behind Aunt Marge's back. "Yes," said Harry. "And feeling might as well do the things properly," he said, "all the time." "Excellent," said Aunt Marge. "I won't have this namby-bamby, wishy-washy nonsense about not hitting people who deserve it. A good thrashing is what needed in 99 cases out of 100. You've been beaten, haven't?" "Oh, yeah," said Harry. "Loads of times." Aunt Marge narrowed her eyes. "I still don't like your tone, boy," she said. "You can speak of your beatings in a casual way, then clearly they aren't hitting you hard enough. Virginia, I'd write if I were you, make it clear that you approve the extreme force in this boy's case." Perhaps Uncle Vernon was worried Harry might forget the bargain. In any case, he changed the subject abruptly. "Had the news this morning, Marge. What about that escaped prisoner, eh?" As Aunt Marge started to make herself at home, Harry caught himself thinking, what's longingly of life at number 4 without her? Governor and Virginia usually encouraged Harry to stay, which Harry was too happy to do. Aunt Marge, on the other hand, wanted Harry under her eyes at all times. She could boom out suggestions for his improvement. She delighted in comparing Harry with Dudley, took pleasure in buying Dudley expensive presents while glaring at Harry, as though daring him to ask why I hadn't got a present. She kept throwing out dark hints of what made Harry such an factory person. He wasn't blaming himself or for the way the boy turned out. By lunch on the third day, there was something rotten on the inside. There's nothing anyone can do about it. Harry tried to concentrate on his food, but his hands shook and his face was starting to burn with anger. By the form, he told himself, think about Hogs, meat, say anything, don't rise. Aunt March reached for a glass of wine. One of the basic rules of breeding, she said. She's all the time with dogs. If there's something wrong with the bitch, something wrong with the pup. Moment, wine glass Aunt March was holding exploded in their hands. Shots of glass flew in every direction. March sputtered and blinked. A great face drooped. Marge squealed. Marge, are you alright? Not to worry, muttered Marge. Opened her face with a napkin. Must have squeezed too hard. This same thing I did the same thing I called lobster the other day. First, Petunia, I have a firm grip. But Aunt Petunia and Venom were both looking at Harry suspiciously. So he decided it's better skip this. Outside in the hall, he leaned against the long time lost control. Something exploded. He couldn't afford to let it happen again. Alchemy found the only thing at stake. I don't like that. He'd been in trouble with the Ministry of Magic. Harry was still an underage, forbidden by wizarded law to do magic outside school. Record wasn't exactly clean either. Last summer, it got quite clear that if the wind of any drive, I would caution Hogwarts. He had the Dursley leave and hurried upstairs out of the way. Harry got through the next 3 days himself, thinking about the handbook of do-it-yourself broom care. Whenever Aunt Marge started on him. It worked quite well. It seemed to give him this look, because Aunt Marge started voicing that he was mentally subnormal. At long last, the final evening of Aunt March's stay arrived. Aunt Petunia cooked fancy dinner, and Uncle Vernon hogged the several bottles of got all the way through the soup and salmon without a single Harry's fault. During the lemon meringue pie, Uncle Vernon long top Uncle Vernon bought them with a long top making cup. Petunia Then Aunt Petunia made coffee and Uncle Vernon brought out a bottle of brandy. I tempt you, Marge. Aunt Marge had already quite a lot of wine. Her face was huge and red. Just a small one then. Chuckled. More than that, and a bit more. That's the ticket. Dudley was eating a hot slice of pie and coffee with her little finger sticking out. Harry really wanted to his bedroom. Let Uncle Vernon's eyes are new. You have to sit it out. Putting the empty brandy. Excellent nosh, Petunia. It's normally just a fry up from 12 dogs. Look after. She bobbed, actually, and patted out great tweets to bother me, but like to see out his sized boy. He went and winked at Dudley. Be a proper sized man that does like your father. Alpha's put more brandy than it. Oh, this one here, she jerked her head at Harry. Felt his stomach clench. Handbook it out quickly. Got a mean, grunty look about him. There with dogs. I had kind of lobster drowned one last year. Ratty little thing it was. Weak on the bread. Harry was trying to remember page 12 of his charm to cure reluctant repulses. So it all comes down to blood. I was saying the other day, bad blood will out. I'm saying nothing against family Petunia, but Aunt Petunia, uh, they were like one. Your sister was a bad egg. Turned up in the best of families. Then she ran off the wastrel. Here's the result in front of us. Harry was staring at his plate, honey ringing in his ear. Grabbed the broom firmly by the tail, but he couldn't remember what came next. That Marge voice seemed to be boring into him like one cool feels. This spotter said Aunt March loudly, using the brandy bottle and splashing more into the glass and over the tablecloth. I told me what it did. Uncle Vernon and I were looking extremely tense. Dudley had even looked up from his pie to gape at his parent. Walked in, Uncle Vernon. Half a glass at Harry. Unemployed. As I expected, that Aunt taking a huge swig of brandy and wiping a chin on us. And no accountant, if for nothing, is this scrounger who? He was not, said Harry suddenly. The table went very quiet. Harry was shaking all over. He never felt so angry in his life. Oh, brandy, yelled Uncle Vernon. Gone very white. He emptied the bottle into Aunt March's glass. You boy, it's not that Harry. Go to bed, go on. No, Vernon, hiccupped Aunt March, holding up her hand. Tiny bloodshot eyes fixed on Harry. Go on, boy, go on. Part of a parent, are you? They go and get themselves killed in a car crash. Drunk, I expect. They didn't die in a car crash, said Harry, found himself on his feet. They died in a car crash, you nasty little liar, and left you to be a burden with their decent, hard-working relatives. Aunt March, full of fury. You're an insolent, ungrateful little. Aunt March suddenly stopped. For a moment, he looked at the words that filled her. She seemed to be swollen, an inexpressible anger, but it didn't stop. Her great red face started to expand. Tiny eyes bulged, mouth stretched too tightly for speech. Next second, there were buttons just burst from her tweed jacket, pinged off the walls. She was inflating like a monstrous balloon, smoke bursting free of her tweed waistband. Her fingers burned up like a salami. Marge! Got Uncle Vernon and her Pacino together as Aunt Marge's whole body began to rise off her chair towards the ceiling. It was entirely round, and a vast live boy with piggy eyes. Her hands and feet stuck out weirdly, drifted up into the making apoplectic popping noises. I came skidding into the room, barking madly. No! Uncle Vernon stood on Marge's feet, got down again. Was almost lifted from the floor himself. Later, I leapt forward, sank his teeth, Vernon's. Harry tore dining room, stop him, heading for the cupboard under the stairs. The door was magically open. The second that heaved his trunk, front door, sprinted upstairs and threw himself to bed. Off the loose floorboard and grabbed a pillowcase full of his books, birthday presents. He wriggled out, seized Hedwig's empty cage, dashed back downstairs to his trunk. Just as Uncle Vernon's burst out of the dining room and trouser legs in bloody tatters. Come back in here, he bellowed. Come back and put her right. The reckless rage had come over Harry. His trunk open, pulled out his wand, pointed it at Uncle Vernon. She deserved it, said Britain very fast. That's what she got. Keep away from me. He fumbled behind him for the latch on the door. I'm going, Harry said. I've had enough. Next moment, he was out in a dark, quiet street. His heavy trunk behind him, a big cage under his arm. End of chapter 2. And people never. Why the hell kill audiobook must like be a fucking chore? Like just one single chapter, I'm like I'm fucking tired. Anyway, I still got 20 minutes airtime on my stream. Like 25 minutes of chapter 2. Could keep going, but sure. Guys, I'm not sure if anyone's in the chat. If you want, I might not be able to finish chapter 3 before my airtime finishes, but if you want me to keep going, just comment to do. Ivan. Myself. No one's actually in chatting. Like Got right. Just keep going then. Harry was just away before it collapsed in Mongolia Crescent. Putting effort of dragging is strong. Sat quite still, hair still surging, frantic thumping of his heart. After 10 minutes alone in the dark street, which overtook him, panic. Whichever way he looked at it, he had never been in a war. He was stranded quite alone, in the dark Mongol, absolutely nowhere to go. And the worst of it was, he had just done serious magic, which meant he was almost certainly expelled from Hogwarts. Cree, I can't. Watching